So, if you take your dog to the vet for an annual checkup, your veterinarian is seeing your dog for roughly 2 hours out of, well, I think it's like 8,760 hours in a given year.
Right. Which is just a massive disparity when you think about it.
It really is. I mean, that means
Right.
you are missing 99.9% of the clinical data if you treat your vet like a car mechanic.
Yeah, and the crazy part is most of us default to that exact behavior.
Exactly. The engine makes a weird noise. We hand the keys to the mechanic and we just, completely surrender the problem.
Hoping they just fix it.
Right. But applying that passive sort of drop it off and hope they fix it mentality to a living biological system is, well, it's a massive blind spot in how we approach animal health care.
It creates a fundamental asymmetry in the medical data. And that's exactly what today's deep dive is about. We're pulling from a really fascinating transcript provided by the Dog Health Academy.
Yeah, and their entire thesis rests on shattering that car mechanic illusion.
Precisely. The mission here is to empower you, the listener, to step into the role of co-pilot. Because honestly, you possess an unparalleled vantage point.
You really do.
You know the nuanced daily operational baseline of your dog better than literally any veterinary specialist on the planet.
I love that framing so much because it immediately shifts the responsibility, but without demanding a veterinary degree.
Right, you don't need to go to vet school for this.
Exactly. No matter your technical expertise, if you can just implement a few specific observational frameworks, you drastically alter your dog's long-term health trajectory.
Because the vet is highly educated, sure, but they are essentially trying to understand the plot of a complex movie by looking at a single screenshot.
A screenshot taken during a high-stress moment in an exam room, no less.
Exactly. While you are the one watching the entire film unfold in real time.
And the clinical value of watching that entire film, it just cannot be overstated.
No, it can't. A veterinarian's primary limitation is simply time and environment.
Yeah, because think about it. When you bring a dog into a clinic, their adrenaline immediately spikes.
So totally. They are panting, their cortisol levels are elevated, their heart rate is artificially high, and they're masking pain, too.
Which is an evolutionary thing, right?
Yeah, it's a deeply ingrained evolutionary survival mechanism. You don't show weakness to strangers. So the vet cannot accurately assess a true resting baseline in that environment.
Which means your primary duty on this healthcare team is capturing that unmasked data in their natural habitat.
Right, and the source material is very specific about what kind of data we should be observing.
It isn't just, staring lovingly at your dog on the rug.
No, although that's nice.
It is, it's great. But it is the intentional calculation of their normal. Like, we are talking about knowing their typical energy pattern.
The texture of their coat, even.
Yeah, and how they recruit their muscles to stand up from a nap. And crucially, their resting respiratory rate.
And the underlying physiology of why the resting respiratory rate matters is just a perfect example of this whole dynamic.
Let's get into that because I found this fascinating.
Okay, so let's look at early-stage heart disease. When a dog's heart begins to pump less efficiently, fluid can start to subtly accumulate in the lungs.
Which sounds terrifying.
It is, and what it does is it decreases oxygen exchange. So to compensate for that lack of oxygen, the dog's body automatically increases the breathing rate while they are asleep.
Ah, I see.
Right, so in a clinic, a panting, anxious dog sounds completely abnormal anyway. You can't get a good read.
But at home, sitting on the couch while your dog is in a deep sleep, you can.
Exactly. Noticing that they're taking 30 breaths a minute instead of their usual 15.5. Well, that's an early warning system for heart failure that a vet simply cannot access.
That power of home observation is just incredible. And the Dog Health Academy transcript actually shares a story about a listener who applied this exact baseline concept.
The water intake story.
Yes, she applied it to her dog's water intake.
Yeah.
And she didn't buy any fancy medical equipment or anything.
No, she just started mentally logging how often she was refilling the bowl.
Right. Just paying attention. And after a few weeks, she noticed a distinct uptick in the volume of water the dog was consuming.
Which is a huge red flag.
Yeah. So she flagged that single observation at her next wellness visit, and that prompted the vet to run a specific blood panel.
And that blood work revealed early-stage kidney dysfunction.
Oh.
Yeah, let's unpack the mechanics of what she actually caught there. Because when kidneys begin to fail, one of the very first things they lose is the ability to concentrate urine.
So they just lose water.
Exactly. The body starts flushing out large amounts of dilute urine, which essentially dehydrates the dog from the inside out.
That makes so much sense.
Right. So the excessive drinking, what we clinically call compensatory polydipsia, is just the dog desperately trying to replace the fluid the failing kidneys are leaking.
And by catching that mechanism before the dog showed any outward signs of illness, like lethargy or whatever, they were able to start dietary management right away.
Proactive treatments, yeah.
They extended that dog's life by years, all because someone knew the baseline of a water bowl.
It's amazing.
But I do have to admit, reading through these physiological triggers, it triggered a bit of anxiety for me.
Oh, sure.
Like, if I start watching every single breath my dog takes or measuring their water intake to the exact ounce, I feel like I'm going to turn into a complete hypochondriac.
It's a very common reaction.
Right. Like, if my dog breathes slightly faster on a Tuesday, am I supposed to throw them in the car and rush to the emergency room?
No, definitely not. And the distinction between collecting data and reacting to noise is vital here.
Okay, good.
Because biology is inherently noisy. Dogs, just like humans, have metabolic fluctuations.
Oh, yeah, like if they just played fetch for an hour.
Exactly. They might drink more because the heating kicked on in the house, or they might be lethargic because they overexerted themselves at the park the day before.
So it's not about panicking over every little thing.
The goal is not panic, the goal is pattern recognition. You're looking for a deviation that sustains itself.
Okay, so the trigger for medical intervention isn't the symptom itself, but the duration of the symptom.
Precisely the duration and the recurrence. Like, if a dog skips breakfast once, that is a data point.
Just a fluke, maybe?
Right. But if they skip breakfast 3 days in a row, the baseline has officially shifted.
That makes a lot of sense.
And you don't need the medical vocabulary to diagnose a gastrointestinal blockage or pancreatitis.
Right. You just need the observational confidence to tell the veterinarian the baseline has changed, and it is staying changed.
Exactly. Which naturally introduces a major logistical problem.
Memory.
Yes.
Oh.
Recognizing a sustained pattern over time is virtually impossible if your only data storage system is flawed human memory.
We all think we will remember when a symptom started, but the reality is our brains overwrite that information constantly.
Constantly.
Like, was it Tuesday he started limping or Thursday? You just forget.
Right. And this is where the source material pivots from passive observation to active record keeping. They describe the owner's role as the dog historian.
Yes, historian. I love that.
It really elevates the entire medical process. Think about a standard veterinary file. It often just contains what happened inside the four walls of that specific clinic.
Yeah, just those specific visits.
But a true lifetime medical dossier curated by you bridges the gaps between those visits.
And it requires maintaining a comprehensive chronological record, right?
Yes. Vaccination histories, specific parasite prevention schedules, past surgical notes.
Historical lab results, longitudinal weight charts, all of it.
Exactly.
You know, the parasite prevention's schedule point really stood out to me in the reading.
Oh, it's so important.
Because most people just think, oh, I gave the tick pill sometime last month. But the Dog Health Academy highlights the actual chemical importance of tracking the exact dates and the exact brands.
The pharmacology behind that is fascinating and critical. Many modern flea and tick preventatives use a class of drugs called isoxazolines,
Okay.
and they work by targeting the nervous system of the parasite. Now, while they are incredibly safe for most dogs, these drugs can slightly lower a dog's seizure threshold.
Oh, wow. I had no idea.
Yeah, so if your dog suddenly requires a new medication for a completely unrelated neurological issue, the veterinarian needs to know exactly which neuroactive preventative is already circulating in the dog's bloodstream.
To avoid overlapping toxicities.
Exactly. Your historian records prevent compounding pharmacological errors.
That is huge. And the same logic applies to tracking weight trends, right?
Absolutely.
Because looking at a dog's weight on a singular Tuesday in March tells you very little.
It's just a snapshot.
But if I have a dossier showing a slow, steady loss of 10 their diet, I've just handed the vet a massive diagnostic clue.
You have essentially handed them the narrative arc of an endocrine shift.
Right.
Because conditions like hypothyroidism, Cushing's disease, or even certain slow-growing metabolic cancers, they don't announce themselves overnight.
They present as creeping trends.
Yes. And when the vet sees that documented trend line, they bypass the generic wait-and-see approach.
They move straight into targeted endocrinology panels.
Exactly. You save months of guessing.
And having that historical dossier is also a literal lifesaver outside of your normal clinic. Like, let's look at the psychology of a veterinary emergency.
The worst case scenario.
Right. It's midnight on a holiday weekend, your dog is in acute distress, and you are rushing into a 24-hour emergency clinic.
You are terrified, sleep deprived.
And dealing with a triage nurse who has never seen your dog before in their life.
In that high-stakes environment, a verbal history is highly unreliable.
Because you're panicked.
Right. The triage nurse has to ask you a battery of questions to establish a baseline, all while your dog might be needing immediate oxygen or fluids.
But if you can physically hand them a structured dossier detailing every active medication, every known allergy, and their most recent blood work baseline,
You are slicing through minutes of diagnostic delay.
you provide the safety parameters for the emergency vet to act aggressively and safely.
Exactly. It's a game changer.
Okay, so we've established the observational baseline at home, and we've compiled the comprehensive historian dossier.
We are fully equipped co-pilots.
We are. But all of this preparation faces its ultimate test when we actually step into the exam room.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
The source material spends a lot of time addressing the unique cognitive load of a veterinary appointment, and it requires a completely different set of skills to navigate successfully.
Because the exam room is an environment of intense sensory and emotional overload.
For the dog and the human.
Right. You are trying to soothe an animal that is likely broadcasting distress signals. The floors are slippery. There are pheromones from other stressed animals in the air.
And the veterinarian is delivering complex medical information in a very condensed time frame.
Human working memory fundamentally shrinks under that kind of acute stress.
Which is exactly why we fail to advocate for our dogs effectively. You walk in with 3 specific concerns. The vet mentions a mild heart murmur, and your brain completely hyperfocuses on the word murmur.
And you walk out of the clinic realizing you entirely forgot to ask about the limping issue you originally booked the appointment for.
I have done that exact thing.
Everyone has. That's why triage and preparation are your defense mechanisms against that cognitive overload.
So the source dictates that you must outline your top priority before you even enter the building.
Because appointment slots are finite, typically 15 to 20 minutes, driven by global staffing shortages in veterinary medicine.
You cannot allow the conversation to drift into secondary issues until the primary biological threat is addressed.
Which means writing your questions down on a physical notepad or your phone beforehand is non-negotiable.
But what I found most valuable in the Dog Health Academy transcript was their specific framework for what to write on that notepad.
Yes, the types of questions.
Right. It isn't just a list of symptoms, it's a list of actionable, outcome-driven questions.
The framework shifts the conversation from medical jargon to practical application.
Like, the first crucial question they suggest is asking what a diagnosis means for the dog's daily routine.
Which is so important. If a vet prescribes crate rest for an orthopedic injury, the medical definition of crate rest is very different from a layperson's interpretation.
Oh, absolutely. You need to ask, does this mean absolutely no stairs? Can they walk to the end of the driveway to use the bathroom, or do I need to literally carry them?
Because that specificity prevents recovery setbacks.
Yeah. And the second question on their framework is just as vital. Asking for the explicit parameters of the prescribed medication.
Right, instead of just taking the pill bottle and leaving.
You need to ask the vet to define the difference between an expected side effect and an adverse event.
Understanding the biological mechanism of the drug saves you from midnight panic.
Give me an example of that.
Well, if a vet prescribes a steroid, they know it will cause increased urination.
Right.
But if you don't ask about side effects, you might interpret that sudden urination as a secondary crisis.
And then you're making an unnecessary emergency room visit.
Exactly. Conversely, if you know what is expected, you also know that anything outside of those parameters requires an immediate phone call to the clinic.
That makes total sense. And the third question is the ultimate safety net, asking for the contingency plan.
If this anti-nausea medication doesn't work in 48 hours, what is our next move?
Right, establishing the clinical half-life of a trial treatment means you aren't left in limbo, wondering how long you should watch your dog suffer before following up.
Asking these actionable questions completely redefines the vet-client relationship. You are no longer second-guessing their medical authority.
You are demanding clarity on your role in the execution of their medical plan.
Because the moment you walk out of those clinic doors, the veterinarian is no longer administering the care.
The execution of the science is entirely in your hands.
And that execution phase brings us to the most vulnerable psychological component of this entire partnership.
Oh, the medical compliance and radical honesty part.
Yes. Let's say you take all the notes, you ask all the right questions, and you get a treatment plan for a severe ear infection.
Okay.
The vet says to administer medicated drops twice a day for 2 weeks, and they schedule a recheck.
And that recheck date is not arbitrary.
Yeah, not at all. The vet has calculated the life cycle of the bacteria or yeast in the ear canal and determined exactly when the infection should be eradicated if the medication is applied correctly.
They are essentially running an N=1 clinical trial on your dog.
Using the prescribed medication as the controlled variable.
But then reality hits.
Always does.
Your dog is terrified of the eardrops. They thrash, they snap, they hide under the bed.
It's a wrestling match every morning.
Right. So over the 2 weeks, you only managed to successfully get the drops in the ear maybe 4 times.
And then you go back for the recheck.
The vet looks in the ear, sees it is still severely infected, and asks, "Did you finish the medication?"
This is the critical juncture where the partnership often collapses under the weight of human shame.
Because people want to be perceived as good pet owners.
Exactly. Admitting that you failed to administer the treatment feels like a moral failing, so the owner lies. They say, yes, we did the drops twice a day.
And by falsifying that data, you just destroyed the clinical trial.
Completely. The vet now believes that the specific bacteria in your dog's ear is highly resistant to the first-line antibiotic,
So they are going to escalate the treatment.
potentially prescribing a much harsher systemic drug, ordering expensive bacterial cultures, or even suggesting a surgical consult.
When the reality is purely an administration failure.
Right. Veterinarians are problem solvers. They operate on the data they are given.
So if you practice radical honesty and say, "I completely failed at getting these drops in because the dog fought me," the vet doesn't judge you.
No, they pivot. They might say, let's abandon the daily drops. We have a lanolin-based medication we can pack into the ear canal right now that slowly releases over 2 weeks.
Honesty unlocks alternative clinical pathways.
It really does.
It is so liberating to realize that admitting failure is actually a crucial part of the medical process.
It takes the pressure off.
It really does.
Yeah.
So to bring this all together, we have the baseline observation, the historical dossier, and the actionable honesty in the exam room.
And managing all of this data manually can feel overwhelming.
Oh, completely. Which is why the source material highlights a digital tool called VitalPet.
The architecture of the VitalPet app aligns perfectly with the biological and logistical needs we've been discussing.
Because it centralizes the data streams.
Exactly. Instead of relying on a chaotic folder of faded carbon copy receipts, the app tracks the vaccination expiration dates, logs the exact brand and batch number of the parasite preventatives.
It graphs the weight trends over time and stores the historical blood work.
It effectively removes the friction of being the historian.
So when you are standing in that chaotic emergency room, you aren't relying on your stressed memory. You just open your phone and hand over the digital dossier.
But, and this is crucial, the Dog Health Academy provides a very necessary disclaimer about this kind of technology.
Right, the disclaimer is paramount. VitalPet and any software like it is strictly an organizational framework.
It aggregates data. It does not possess the capacity to interpret that data biologically.
Right. It cannot diagnose a condition, and it does not replace the nuanced clinical judgment of a licensed veterinarian.
No app can do that.
If your dog is showing a sustained deviation from their baseline, you don't ask the app what's wrong. You use the app to give the vet the clearest possible picture of the problem.
The technology serves the human partnership. It doesn't replace it.
It accelerates the diagnostic process by ensuring the veterinarian is working with accurate longitudinal data rather than a single high-stress snapshot.
Exactly.
You know, looking at how powerful that longitudinal data is on an individual level really got me thinking about the broader implications of this deep dive.
Of the macro level.
Yeah. We've seen how one owner, simply by paying closer attention to a water bowl and keeping a mental record, caught a kidney disease early enough to add years to their dog's life.
We are already extending canine lifespans just by improving human observation.
Exactly. It demonstrates the profound impact of optimizing the micro level of care. But let's scale that up.
Okay.
Let's look at the macro level future of canine healthcare. What if the co-pilot concept merges with the rapid advancements in wearable technology?
Oh, that's fascinating.
Right. Imagine a world where every single dog is outfitted with biometric trackers that measure data with the precision of a professional human athlete.
We are talking about collars that continuously log resting heart rate variability, sleep cycle architecture, respiratory rates down to the decimal.
Yes, and minute changes in gait symmetry that indicate joint degradation months before a visible limp appears.
And if you aggregate that hyper-accurate, continuous baseline data from millions of dogs and feed it into veterinary research models, the potential is staggering.
It really is. We might suddenly discover the hidden physiological precursors to devastating diseases.
AI models could analyze the biometric data and alert a vet to the early markers of osteosarcoma or hemangiosarcoma before a tumor is ever physically detectable.
It would represent a total paradigm shift in veterinary medicine.
The entire industry could transition from reactionary medicine, waiting for the engine to break down and trying to fix it, to truly predictive, preventative medicine.
Where we intervene on a cellular level before the clinical signs even manifest.
It's an incredible thought.
It is a brilliant vision of the future. But that future fundamentally relies on the mindset shift we've explored today.
It starts at home.
It relies on owners deciding to stop being passive bystanders. So the next time your dog is sleeping at your feet, take a moment to really look at them.
Notice their breathing.
Notice their baseline. You aren't just dropping the car off at the shop anymore. Step into the cockpit, start building your dossier, and become the most vital medical advocate your dog will ever have.